So, Andor.
Andor.
He's a Mandor.
Andor episode 1 to 3.
Yep.
Oh baby.
Oh, baby.
Um it was
I think. Hmm?
it was really good. Coming out of
Yeah, it
episode 3.
was.
Coming out of episode 3, I can be like, that was great. However,
Oh,
I know. I bet you weren't
boy.
expecting this.
Here it goes, chat. Strap
Chat.
in. Chat.
Remember the podcast chat? Um However, you told me it was a slow show. I was worried
It
because
is a slow show.
we did 3 episodes. And episodes 1 and 2 really drag their feet. And I think what happened, as I'm saying this now, the theory has just come to me. I think what happened is they must have been like, we're going to do 3 episode releases. Did they do 3 episode releases? I'm assuming they did. Okay, we're going to do 3 episode releases at a time. We've got this story for the first quarter. I looked it up. There are 12 episodes. And they were like, they had this, they went through the process and they came up with the story. And then they were like, oh, we have a set runtime. We have like this stuff. We've acted it all out. We've written it. We've got the editing. And I think they got forced into a situation where they had to make episodes 1 and episode 2 just kind of drag their feet quite a lot. I think if one of the episodes was slow, that was fine. But it's a three-part opening with a really good episode 3.
Yeah.
And episode 1 and 2
It's just really
are
slow
the same.
world building, and there's just lots of, like, I don't know, I think there's lots of really nice, like, long hold shots throughout it and stuff, and lots of sort of musical kind of, not a montage in a traditional sense, but kind of montagey and things. It was like a very nicely shot. It was very differently shot and directed to a lot of Star Wars.
Apart from the opening of episode 1. Episode 1 was, I feel like, kind of that, like, until because it opens with like a whole sequence that's at night. Our main character is going through like dark streets and it's raining and he goes into like I think a brothel.
Yeah.
And like the color composition all the way up until the end of that night, until it goes to the next morning, is like very, like, there's a lot of blues and then there's like some oranges contrasting at some point. I think when he's in the brothel, I think that's the only time. The rest of it is like everything is shot in this specific light. And I'm just like, oh, very Star Warsy. There's some Imperial, at one point, a light, someone gets a light out or something, and you see the tunnel they're in, and it's like, oh, this is, if you know Star Wars, you're like, that's an Imperial corridor. It's got the grates on the roof, It's got that style.
Technically, it was a corporate-owned tunnel.
Yeah, we don't know anything about this shit. But
technically, it's not the Empire specifically, but a corporation.
Going back to what you were saying, it does
Thank you.
It does have really good, like, the music, the camera work,
the music.
and it's all. I mean, it's a lot of silence actually. There was very little music, but I think it was used in that way because it is a very slow show, and so it's like kind of, if there was music, it would have to be very, very long, and it would probably feel quite slow. I'm not sure. But I think it was very good. I would argue that the slowness was almost carried by all those shots and all that world building and all those settings and all those different little bits. And it just, like, yeah, they filled a lot of time with characters talking in interesting scenes with people moving around, and it's like it.
Well, it's like establishing a lot of the characters And although
Yeah.
in like the end of the third episode, spoilers for when we get there, Andor leaves with Luthen.
What is the name of the planet?
It is Brain Gone. That's what it's called.
I thought
Totally,
the planet
yeah.
was called
It's called
Andor.
F something.
I
Come
honestly
on,
thought the planet was
come
called
on.
Andor.
No, this is what everybody said, but Andor's called Andor. Ferrix is the
It's because
planet.
it's because they're flying in and they're like, at one point, some people are flying in and they're talking about Andor and it being like, oh, they're dangerous and they're armed and they're hostile. It's like I thought they were talking about the people.
Oh, no, Andor's called Andor.
Yeah, for some reason that instead of all the times they
But yeah, anyway, they're like setting up all of the like characters like Bix and the guy whose name I don't remember even being mentioned, who's his friend who works at like the shipyard,
oh yeah, him
and his mother, and B, the little cute robot.
the
Who
anxiety robot.
I would do anything to to keep alive
So would
at
I.
all costs.
Oh my gosh. Sweet B.
And yeah, it's just like they're establishing all of these characters because they
Bix's boyfriend.
do come up again in the series.
Yeah, but
So it's nice to like get more, like a bit more. It makes it feel like he's out there living on this planet. He's there going about like not his daily life because he's fucked up and he's having to deal with some shit.
Yeah.
But like his actual kind of life, I don't know. It feels more lived in than a lot of things.
now I understand why they do this. They do it so that, you know, they spend 2 episodes. It's a 3-parter, and they spend 2 episodes giving us these characters, making it so we can get used to them. We know who they are, what they're like, what they're about, and like getting attached to them so that they
Yeah.
can fuck them up. Like,
Yeah,
episode 3 was very clearly like, you love these characters now, we're gonna mess them up.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I was thinking about this specifically because I don't know if you remember this or if you've watched Rogue One. In fact, even.
Oh
but
yeah, you're
Andor-
right.
Andor is in Rogue One, the film, and
Wait,
this
what?
is his like his like sort of rebel origin story. And
Is he actually?
and what?
Is he
Andor
act-
is in he's in Rogue One. Overlite.
Oh my god.
He's one of the
No
main
idea.
characters. It's him and Jin, and then the other two name I can't remember, and K2SO the robot.
Yep.
And Andor and Jin die on the planet when they steal the plans, and then they hug it out, and they get blown up by the Death Star.
On Rogue One that they die?
Oh, that's not the planet's like, it's just whatever Imperial planet's called. I
yeah.
can't remember, like the random base.
I don't know Star Wars naming
I can't
schemes.
remember. It's just such. This never comes up again. It's just a planet. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, they get Death Star to death. So we know that Andor dies. So I was thinking this while I was watching it, and I was like, they do such a great job in this show because you can't watch it thinking, oh my god, Andor might die, because you know he's not gonna die.
Yeah.
So you got to watch him go through some shit, and also they build up a bunch of characters around him. Like they build up his adopted mother,
Marva? I think it's Marva. Marva?
Marva, yeah,
Marva.
and like his friends, clearly very close to like Bix, and the guy whose name I still don't know, who works at the dock. Bix's like partner Tim, who clearly has some jealousy issues.
We'll get to that.
You know, and B, like they build up a bunch of, and then like just a load of random dudes that he owes money to and shit. Like they build up a bunch of these characters as like a kid, and their dad, who's I don't think his name gets mentioned at all. Who are friends with Bix and everything.
I think my problem is that I am like a ravenous Hydra. I ingest all these things, and maybe I don't get their names very quickly, but you know, the characters are presented in the first episode, and I'm like, okay, well, we've got the jealous boyfriend in the first scene Andor has with Bix. It's like
Yeah.
very kind of clear what their relationship is and how they regard each other. And it's like you've got all these characters it introduces, and it's like, okay, I know all these characters are about. And then it spends another episode sort of slowly pushing all the characters that haven't interacted into each other until, episode 3 happens. And it just, to me, it's like it could have happened a bit faster.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they probably could have, they could have probably done it all a lot quicker, but I don't know. I liked it. I don't think it was that slow that it put you off watching it.
No, it didn't put me off. I was sort of praying that episode 3 would also not. I was hoping that episode 1 would be the only episode that was slow for the explicit purpose of introducing all the characters and seeing what they're like and seeing them get to know each other. And I think I literally wrote as I was going into episode 2, I was like, never mind, let me just check my notes. Did episode 1 drag its feet for no reason? I swear to God. Because episode 2 also then kind of just went very slowly, showed the characters interacting. There's very progressive, all the stages of all these different characters and what's going on until we get to episode 3 where they all collide. In the results of their actions in episode 1 and 2 come to haunt them or like each other or whatever. But it to me feels like they had a story and they realized that they had to tell it in 3 episodes when they could have told it in 2.
I feel like the next 3 are also quite slow.
Oh no.
They do the next 3. I remember watching them as they came out and thinking,
yeah,
let's get to the action. Like we're on episode 2 of the second little arc of 3, and I was like, let's go. And then the third one, the payoff was so good. It's this real tease. It's really teasing you. You're like,
maybe they just
come on, let's get to the action. And then the action comes. You're like, oh, thank God. Oh, it's so good. And I think that's it. It's just like this really slow build up, and then you fall off the end of the roller coaster. And it's like a Brandon Sanderson book where you hit that last third, and it's just you can't put the book down.
I'm not sure I want to read Brandon Sanderson anymore. Look, when you say get to the action, I do want to clarify that, for me, tragically, the most compelling characters in episode 1 and 2 are the cops. It's the corporate. Genuinely, the characters I was most invested in seeing in those first 2 episodes were the corporate shills. The ones who are, incredibly... We've got these 2 characters that are incredibly, everyone else is just, kind of chilling, and these 2 characters are, we have to be diligent. We have to take everything seriously. 2 people have died. This is an incredibly serious matter. There are dangerous individuals who have killed members of our company. And it's like, damn, boy, I didn't know you were married to this job.
I wrote that and I was like, it's called Sergeant Mosk is one of them. And he is the most fucking hard ass,
Is that the smaller
Scottish
one?
Guy.
Yes, I love him so much.
Yeah, he's like, we're gonna fuck shit up. These fucking bastards coming over here. They're coming and killing our people. We can't have this. Oh, bloody hell.
But genuinely, those 2 are the most compelling characters in the first 2 episodes because they're the only ones actually fucking doing anything.
Well, Andor is running around. He's trying very slowly he's making an alibi. But basically,
yeah, you see him doing things.
He starts off
it takes
and
forever.
Goes to this brothel, and he's looking for his sister, and he doesn't get the information, and he annoys 2 off-duty but technically on-duty guards who are hanging around in the brothel. They go out with them drunk, try and fleece Andor for some money. Andor puts up a fight, accidentally kills one of them, realizes that there's no way he can get away with having killed one of them, so he kills the other one as well. And then like then they're like,
and then
so
the
whole
next
plot
the
is
next
that,
two
like,
episodes are
yeah,
the
they're like trying to find out who has killed these guards, and then
episode
so
3 is sort of the end result of
episodes,
all of their actions coming back to bite them.
And Andor spends like the first 2 episodes, he gets like an alibi, and then he's like, oh my god, I've got to get some money, I've got to get off world, I've got to leave some money for my mum. And it's just him running around like trying to sort of make plans, and
like, it happened slowly, and I was enjoying it, but I wasn't enjoying it. But literally, to me, the plot, I was going through a plot summary in head. I didn't actually write one down, but I was like, he kills 2 guys at the start. He's looking for his sister. I'm sure that'll come up later. He kills 2 guys at the start who are corporate, like, security or something. They're not actual cops. But
yeah.
Like,
well, they're like, they are basically their sort of cops of the station or whatever. Of their planet area. I don't know, whatever.
2 episodes pass with people making plans and trying to, Andor's trying to save himself. The cops are trying to figure out who he is and come after him, etc., until they finally get to... And then episode 3 happens, and they find him, and there is a resulting conflict, and then he escapes. And, like, honestly, that is basically what happened. Like, he kills 2 guards, the cops come after him, he escapes. That's, like, all of the, arguably, for me, there's lots and lots and lots of small details about characters interacting and all their relationships with other. It sets up lots of things about his backstory as well, and there's like a bunch of scenes with that. There's loads of stuff going on, but just like in terms of, it's coming. Like it opened with like he's killed 2 guards, and we've got 2 police characters who are like, we've got to find this guy. He's like panicking, setting up, trying to escape. It's like, okay, well, they're gonna get to where he is. There's gonna be some kind of shootout. He's gonna escape, or maybe he'll get imprisoned and there'll be some further thing. But like, you know what direction it's going. It's coming. You just spend 2 episodes waiting for that to happen. But
yeah, but then
it's okay.
Wasn't the payoff so good when it came?
Not regarding to that plot, but like,
what? Because he just escaped.
It is a really good payoff, but for things that I will talk about later.
Oh.
But
he's escaped.
It's okay.
So far.
Those first 2 episodes are good because we spend our time basically. It's just you don't have to watch episode 3 for episode 1 to be entertaining. Like, the plot is there, and episode 3 it all happens and it's great. But in episode 1 and 2, the music when it happens is pretty good. I didn't notice it that much. Except for episode 3, like the way it ended. The like camera, not the camera work. The what do you call that? When you got the panels, the scene by scene. I've forgotten the word for it. Like the scene progression. Let's call it that.
Okay.
The world building is amazing. The fucking at some point there's a guy with a hammer, a pair of hammers, and he is the alarm for everyone in the city. He smashes an anvil. It's amazing.
There's lots of shots of him because it happens like at least twice or maybe 3 times.
I called Chekhov's gun on him as soon as he showed up, and technically I was wrong, but also technically I was right. I think because of the metal smashing theme.
Yeah, I think it's like because they're just setting up the planet, the setting. I don't know. It's just like all of these little touches to show what is going on.
They are, but to me, because I'm a ravenous Hydra who I think just consumes all of this really fast and ingests it, and then just like give me more, make things happen, do something. I understand already. But I think sometimes I think shows are slow, but they're slow because not everyone sees a thing and immediately jumps to what is going to happen later, or how they're related to each other, or how am I allowed to be arrogant about this? Am I allowed to be like, I'm very dissecting, and I'll take a thing and I'll
flex.
I don't know if you noticed, I like tearing things apart.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it spends like 2 episodes doing that, but like it's entertaining to watch because of all that like setting stuff and and you know it shows all the droids and the aliens hanging out. There aren't that many aliens, but there's a couple of
Yeah, that
aliens
was
in
one
there.
thing I think people,
Not
when it
enough
came out, they were
aliens.
like, not very many aliens in this show.
Hmm.
One of the few, considering,
Well, they're
like, I
probably
don't know,
unionized. The art
it's
department.
it's very good Star Wars shows. A lot of cool shit happening, and then just not really any aliens at all. They just didn't bother.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was like one of the few times I did go into this with the only apart from you telling me it was a slow show,
Mm.
I just had a quote in my head of someone at some point saying that they watched it and they forgot it was a Star Wars show until like a Imperial ship flew in and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is Star Wars."
Yeah. It definitely like until like the Empire stuff sort of kicks off. It definitely feels like it doesn't. I don't know. It feels like a Star Wars, but it also really doesn't feel like Star Wars. Like it has this feeling of just. I think a lot of people were saying when it came out, like it's just like you should watch it, not because it's a great Star Wars show,
It's just a
but
good show.
because it's just a great show.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think episode 1 and 2 were carried by all of those things, and actually the main thing was for me the character interactions. Just simply the way all of the characters, or nearly all of the characters, talk to each other is so inherently entertaining to watch. Like the two corporate folks talking to each other is like the funniest shit ever. It's like the first time they meet. The one of the guys like a higher up position has called the other one in to organize this sort of expedition to hunt down Andor for his crimes, and this guy who's been called in, who's like a very sort of boots on the ground sort of officer leadery type.
yeah, he's
He comes
like
in. He's like,
squad sergeant.
"Got to do something about this. There's fermenting."
Yeah,
Pockets of
yeah.
fermenting, and I fucking
Pockets
lost
of
my
fermenting.
shit.
Yeah,
Like,
it's great.
it's so entertaining watching them talk to each other and like all the characters. This is the thing that I came to understand watching a video on The Last of Us. Completely different show, completely different setting, but in that
I still haven't
setting,
watched it.
characters talk over each other all the fucking time, and that's what people do in real life. They talk over each other all the fucking time, but in shows they often get that wrong if if you're trying to make a conversation feel like it's real people doing it. In like if you're, sometimes that's not the case, and you've got you have a setting where your characters talk in weird ways. Star Trek, but
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think there's like a sort of more theatrical thing of characters don't talk over each other. Like
yeah,
there's a very set thing
yeah.
of that.
I think it's
And
a
I think a
stylistic
lot of it
choice.
also was probably a lot for a lot of early TV as the microphones weren't good enough and
Mm,
they had to like make sure everything was as audible as possible and they ADR'd a load of stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
wasn't
we've
as
got
easy.
for those first 2 episodes, it's just really entertaining watching Andor basically just talk to a bunch of people. He just goes and he talks to people, and those people sometimes talk to each other. Like he goes and tries to hire a ship off planet, and the two guys at like the ticket booth are like arguing about something, and it's just entertaining watching them argue before he turns up, and then he leaves, and they continue their argument.
Yeah.
He talks to his mom, and it's very like they talk over. Like he's trying to talk to this robot. The bot he has, B, is it just B? Bot
Yeah,
called B. Yeah, which is
I don't know. I don't know what its full
I
name
called it
is.
anxiety bot because it just has anxiety, and I love it.
It's,
So it's
yeah,
so sweet.
Who's the poor baby? Yeah.
It's
Just
just,
wanna
just,
give it a
just
big
like
hug. Don't let anything happen to B.
he's like, I've got to go, and it's like, don't leave, just stay. It's like, oh,
don't leave,
sweet
Cassian.
robot baby, please, I love you so much. But
I think Star Wars always gets the droids
yeah,
perfect.
it's got such good droids.
Like R2, amazing. everybody loves 3PO, right? Everybody, yeah, right?
3PO is fun.
Okay, maybe not 3PO.
I think I liked 3PO when I watched the movies.
Yeah, sometimes it's me, but
I liked him just as much as I like Jar Jar Binks.
Okay, yeah,
I can't remember how much I like Jar Jar Binks.
And like K2SO.
Yeah, K2SO. Is that the orange
in
one?
Rogue One.
Is that the orange ball?
They're voiced by Alan Tudyk.
Who is Alan Tudyk?
Overlite. What do you mean?
Oh, the big boy. The big boy. Yeah, the big boy. I love the big boy. He's great.
Oh my god.
You know, the big boy robot. And I thought there was some, rolling droid in Rogue One that I'd forgotten.
No. And BB-8's a little cutie.
Yeah.
And BD-1 in Jedi Fallen Order,
Yeah. They get the droids right. Yeah, it's just so those first 2 episodes. It was very entertaining to watch, simply because I did get a bit bored in episode 2 because I was like, okay, we know these things are going to happen. Can we get there? I hope something of substance happens at some point. But it's a very. I don't think we've done a show like this yet on this podcast, which is a character-driven show. It is a show in which the things that happen are entirely driven by the actions of the characters that make them. So
Battlestar Galactica definitely does that a lot as well.
Yeah, but
later on. At the very start.
At the very start.
Like,
yeah.
Cylons have done a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, there's character stuff happening in the shows we've watched, but like very few. Like, the Andor kills 2 guards because the guards decided they didn't like the look of him and came after him and were like, we're gonna fleece you. And then he's like, he decides to fight back, accidentally kills one of them, has to face the consequences of that. Bix's boyfriend is the one that rats out Andor because he's jealous of
he thinks there's something going on.
Yeah.
But what's actually going on is Andor wants her to reach out to her contact so he can sell this item that he's been hoarding so that he can get enough money to get off world because he's killed 2 guards.
Yeah.
But it looked like the way they interact and the way the jealous boyfriend sees it is that there's something going on there. And so he finally an alert comes in of like, there's a dude from this planet who is wanted for questioning. And then he rats down Andor, and then immediately regrets it, but it's too late at that point.
And the 2 security folks, they are the ones responsible. It's not as if there was like he killed 2 guards. Oh god, the cops are after him. It's like he killed 2 guards. The like commanding officer in the entire like division of that, regarding that sector or whatever, was like, this was an accident. Those 2 guards clearly picked a fight they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
They were in a place they shouldn't have been in. Yeah.
Drinking alcohol we shouldn't have. Like, he's just like, basically breaks it down for the other guy of like, you can't report this. Just brush it under the rug and everything will go much smoother for us here. See you later.
He was like, it's in your interest to do this.
Yeah, it's in everybody who works here's interest that you brush this under the rug.
I was watching that and it made me think about, like, is this corruption? Would you call this corruption? Like, technically, but I think it points to, like, wider issues.
Well, it's the issue. They don't want the Empire to go, ooh, crime's bad there. We're going to take over directly.
Which is a failing of the Empire, not a failing of the people here.
Like the Empire just like, I'm going to crack down, so then so that their company can keep operating independently. They misrepresent the crime numbers, so it looks like crime has like a reasonable level.
Looks like they're doing fine. Yeah. Which is more of a systemic thing than a which the show does go into a little bit, and I'm sure it goes into it later, the way episode 3 ended. But like all of them are like everyone else in that sort of corporate wing is like, you know, fucking not our problem. They're the ones who got themselves killed. And then these two dudes
else is just doing their job.
Yeah, the two dudes are like, we cannot allow this kind of criminal activity. 2 people are dead. We must do something about this. And like they're insistent on it, and everyone else is like, oh, for fuck's sake. But you know, because they have a high enough position, they effectively force this enforcement action to happen, and it results in like the clash in episode 3 where bad things happen to most everyone involved, honestly.
Yeah,
there's no winners.
Do you want to get to that? Because I have like a hilarious sort of irony, really. So,
go on.
Do we want to get to like episode 3 shit going down?
Well, I think we've kind of explained what episode 1 and 2 are about. I wrote down somewhere.
I can't remember if I wrote down anything specific.
My favorite kind of plot: messy characters collide in a big clusterfuck. That's episodes 1 and 2, and then resulting in episode 3 is just the characters interacting with each other, kind of some of them going about their lives, others aren't, trying to help each other out, etc., etc. They're all doing stuff, and it like slowly gravitates towards this collision. But it is entertaining to watch them, just because it's written well and it's funny to watch them talk with each other, and the setting is cool. And, you know, Hammer Boy every now and then shows up and smashes his anvil, and I'm like, yes, Hammer Boy, smash that alarm. Like, ring your bell.
The only thing that we haven't really mentioned before episode 3 chat is when the sergeant and the inspector are flying to Ferrix, where they know Andor is. They've got the tip, they've found some information about him or whatever. They're like on their way, and the sergeant gives like he briefs his men, and he's like, "This is what we're gonna do. It's very dangerous. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that, and we're gonna do this for the glory, you know, for the glory of the company and everything." And then he's like, "All right, Inspector, over to you." And the inspector's like,
It's really nice.
And he gives the world's most awkward hype speech.
I wouldn't have picked anyone else to do this with. It's really excellent that you are the ones with me. That's the speech he gives, basically.
Yeah, and they're all like, cool story, bro.
And the other guy makes him clap.
And then the guy's like, excellent speech, sir. And then he walks off.
So fucking, but like that's what I mean when I'm like, it's just entertaining to watch them talk to each other. It's like I'm not watching this for what I know is eventually going to happen right now. I'm just kind of entertained by watching these characters try and talk to each other and just fail or be awkward or like fumble their way through a conversation. It's really like just very entertaining. But eventually, you know, the cops arrive on Ferrix.
Yeah,
on Ferrix. And lots of things happen. Shit happens. Everyone who's been established moves to action in very interesting ways. And the show makes a lot of statements that I really enjoyed watching it make, about what happens to all these people and the consequences of their actions, in this situation.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just gonna like, so Bix's contact shows up and she meets with him, a dude who I don't think is named, but he's Luthen. And
I think he's named.
Was he named? I don't think he was named.
I think when he walks in, not at this point, but
and then like he goes to meet Andor, and Bix goes back to her job, and then they all find out, like everybody in the town finds out that the corpos go to Andor's house, and Andor's got a communicator, and he's communicating with B, and they trace his communicator, and they start going after the direction he's in, and so the town finds out.
Do you want me to interrupt at any point?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, you're going into the town bit, but I think this is
I
like.
want to get to the Tim bit.
All right. Well, I mean,
And then so
okay, go on.
Bix runs off like, oh shit, Andor's in trouble because she knows what's going down. So she starts running off, and then Tim's like, oh no, don't go, it's dangerous. So he starts chasing after her, and then
she's like, how do you know who we were talking about? Finds out he was the rat, gets pissed off at him.
Yeah, she's not happy.
Yep.
And because she's running into the chaos and everybody else is running to their homes, one of the Corpo guard squad sees her and is like, oh, where the fuck are you going? You're a little bit suspicious. So they like pin her to the wall, and then she tries to run off. So one of the guards just grabs her, bashes her head off of the wall, and then cuffs her to a drain pipe. Very normal thing to do, smiley face.
Yep.
And then Tim shows up and he's like, what the fuck have you done? What have you done? And like tries to walk up and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And they're like, back off. And one of the guards just shoots him, kills him, just randomly. And I thought it was thinking back to the start. This all started when they were really upset, and they were chasing after Andor because 2 guards were killed. And then they go to this planet and they just shoot an unarmed dude in the street and kill him. It's like
I'm going to explain this now, how I perceived this whole series of events, specifically pertaining to the structure that sort of allowed many of these actions. And what we have is a group of armed people coming in with the intent to extricate an individual, sort of on the grounds that they are enforcing some sort of.
They have a warrant.
Look, they have a warrant.
They have jurisdictional authority over the planet.
Yes, they have jurisdictional authority over the planet. Thank you. I did sort of struggle to describe the kind of authority that they have. Yeah, they are basically the cops.
Yeah, they technically are space copping over this planet, but they don't really have an established presence there. They just go there like they don't actually do anything normally.
Yes. This is you have a group of people who are able to at any time say, hey, we're going to send a team armed with weapons that kill very, very easily to do something in a situation and a sort of environment and culture that they actually don't know anything about and actually harbor a lot of disdain towards. Specifically, like that conversation that we mentioned earlier that I thought was hilarious, where the guy is like, pockets of fermenting. It's like, okay, but you're the law enforcement and you're actively antagonizing the people that live in the place that you're supposed to be, enforcing some sort of law. And like you're in charge of crime here.
Yes, doesn't sound like any Empire
this doesn't sound like any USA police department whatsoever. Yeah. But also, it not just the US. I think it's sort of regarding general like. For me, episode 3 really, really clearly establishes this kind of. It's you've got this separated body of law enforcement, that is kind of headbutts against effectively community action, is what I would call it. The sort of the power of like these people are living with each other. This is their community. They're the ones who know each other. They're in this environment where they have to live under this corporate body that has the power to just send in strangers who have never been to this planet with guns, who think that it's a terrible place or some backwater place or some like you can see the way they act there and the way they're sort of behaving is they're very, very hostile to just the people that live there who are just living their lives. When they get there, like the what happens when they go to interrogate Andor's mum,
Yeah.
Marva, is the townsfolk are like, what the fuck are they doing? Why have corporate security armed with guns and like 12? There's like 4 or 5 of them that go in the house. They're
Yeah.
like, they all get really, really antsy about it because obviously they don't want anyone to like. They all know who she is. They all know each other. It's like a very strong. It's very clearly a strong community, and they start making noise. Literally, they all start like. I love this scene so much. One guy starts like rhythmically tapping metal, like drumming metal together. Like he's got a
Yes.
metal stick and he starts drumming a bit of metal. And then like other people start doing it. And suddenly like the entire town is doing it as like kind of like an alarm system. Everyone starts like shutting down their stores. They kind of run off the streets and they're all making tons and tons of noise. And it's just like you can clearly see they have this like established protocol that is
Yeah.
not by way of like there's no like
Oh, it's just like a
ruling
social
body that's decided
thing,
this is what they do. It's just this is how they come
how-
together to fight what may be like injustices against them as a community. Like what is people coming in deciding that they have jurisdiction over what is allowed and what is not allowed, and just not helping anyone, including themselves. Like the show. This is the statement the show I think very very clearly makes is nothing good comes out of this for anyone. Andor has to leave his home and go on the run. Some of the security officers die, like 5 of them, 5 or 6, just are killed.
Well, no, because Luthen blows like
Close the doors.
So there was like, how many squads did they send? There's 12
4,
dudes,
but there were 12 of them
and-
plus 2 officers, so 14.
Yeah,
people.
so there's 14. So there's 4 people per squad. So 4 of them die.
I think
pretty much straight
3
away.
of them die
trying to
fighting
break into the location that Luthen and Andor are like negotiating.
Luthen and Andor meet.
Yeah,
and
they
then
meet,
the
and they're
security-
Andor's trying to sell him this like thing that can see Empire's shipping routes or whatever within a certain space, and it's worth a lot of money. He's trying to sell it to Luthen. Luthen's trying to recruit Andor. He doesn't really give a shit about the thing as much.
Yeah.
And they're like having this chat, and then the 4 guards show up and they kill them all. And then later on, like 3 more die in an explosion, so they lose like seven dudes at least.
Yeah, and in that explosion, very specifically, the guy who kind of the security officer who kicked all of this off, who was the first guy, the only guy in the room to be like, we have to do something about these 2 dead officers from the start, is clearly incredibly traumatized by I think he's in shock, but you know, trauma later, shock now.
He gets like Andor and Luthen sneak up on him, disarm him, and like sort of leave him tied up, and then as soon as he gets loose, he thinks they're escaping in this speeder.
Yeah.
But they're not actually in the speeder, they've just lined the speeder with explosives, and then the speeder gets shot down, and they start driving out in their speeder, blow up the other speeder, and then he's just like in shock that like they've got away and that they've killed like so many of these people. He's supposed to have gone there and arrested 1 dude, and he's got like 7 men killed. He's been captured. There's been an explosion, a lot of gunfighting, which he's not really. Like,
he was
he's
also
an inspector. He's not a soldier. Like,
he also cracked under the pressure of being captured by them because he thought they would kill him, and he gave up how many people they had on the ground and like key information. But like, you know, he's traumatized by it. Andor has to leave home. Biggs gets horribly injured. Tim is his name. Tim, Biggs's boyfriend, straight up dies.
He's dead.
He's dead. very early on, a friend of Andor is introduced who sort of covers for him. He gives him an alibi. It's like, oh, we went out drinking last night.
Yeah, I still don't remember his name.
Yeah, he while sort of no one is watching, and while the entire town basically goes into this alarm state where they're all making this noise, he chains a large piece of junk to the ship that the security corpos flew in
ships.
on. And a man is killed, and we do get a scene of him in a bar just basically struggling to kind of he's sat there kind of mulling over the consequences of his actions, where he's had to kill a man and he has to live with that now.
Yeah,
like he had to do it to save his friend.
Yeah.
But it's
if he hadn't, then that ship would have picked up the other dudes and chased after Andor and Luthen and probably shot them down or something.
Yeah, but to me, it's just so clear what the show is saying. You've got a separate body that has come in that has no idea what the fuck this community is like. They're essentially from like a different country. If you were to think about this in real world terms, like that's how it feels. They speak the same language, sure, but they land on the ground. They treat everyone as hostile. Some of them die as a result of that. As a result of sort of using that power, some of them die, some of them are traumatized. It's a bad time for them. As a result of ratting out Andor, Bix's boyfriend dies. Like, I thought that was such a clear, he is I think, apart from the guards that bust in on Andor and Luthen, who I think sort of die in that firefight, it might be before then. It might be before that breaks out.
No, it isn't.
Is it after?
It's after, which I think is one of the reasons they were more aggressive, because they just he's not armed. Like he just ignored their warning to stay where he is and moves towards them.
Yeah, but they don't know what he's.
But then they just kill him.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it was like you've gone there to apprehend a person who's killed 2 people, and then you kill 1 person. It's like it's kind of.
A distinction there again is one of the corpos shoots him. Immediately, the commanding officer sends him away. He's like, "You need to go back to the ship now," because he's like, "Oh, this guy clearly cracked under pressure." It's like, "Oh, so you're telling me this guy was effectively not trained very well and was put in this situation just because he worked at this company?" Like they just needed people with guns who had they were just random people with guns. They took effectively just some people and were like, you can be going on a power trip, and we're clearly not going to train you in how to actually deal with any kind of law enforcement or anything. But so he gets sent off. I want to point that out. But Tim, Bix's boyfriend is the first sort of relevant character to suffer, although Bix does get actually beaten up. But like Bix is, I find it very, Bix is the one that effectively calls them and is like, tips them off about who Andor is, the fact that Andor is the person they're looking for. They're looking for someone who killed people, and I think he makes the link somehow. I can't remember how he makes the link. But he's like, yeah, this might be who you're looking for. Sends them a picture of him.
Bix at some point had told Tim that Andor was from the
Aramari?
Feridar. What was it called?
Feridar.
Is that what it's called?
No, it's not called Feridar. That's a Twitch chatter. I think it's Karamari.
I thought it was a planet.
Yeah, but it's like Kara is something.
I'm thinking of Twitch chat.
Yeah, you're thinking of Twitch chat. But Tim is the one that calls them and is killed for it. Like, he's the one that tipped them off. And he dies for that. It's like, when they tell you to never speak to the cops? Don't speak to the cops. This is a pretty like, to me, this is just a man with a giant fucking hammer that says, "Don't speak to the cops," has come in and beat me with it. Like, that's what that's saying to me. he's the one that ratted out, and he was killed by them on sight, just
Yeah.
for seeing that they had beaten Bix up and approaching them. Bix, I don't know if I think Bix got involved. Bix happened to be in the vicinity. Effectively, Bix looked a bit more stressed out than everyone else, and they decided, as an end result of that,
she was running the wrong
just
way,
beaten up.
and she seemed like she was, like
She was effectively irrelevant, like, to them.
Yeah.
They had no idea. They just decided she looked suspicious.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, she was beaten up and chained to a drain pipe. Andor had to leave home. Marva had her home trashed, completely trashed. It's just like every single character. The show spends 2 episodes very slowly giving us these characters and, getting used to them, and eventually getting to this point where in episode 3 it says, hey, we've got some not local law enforcement who have come into this situation with no clue how to speak to any of these people, where they're clearly an antagonizing figure to the locals. They're not on, they don't have a good rapport established. They clearly aren't here to help. The locals know that, and they treat each other as such. Can't think of any analogies to real life that this would be regarding to. And everybody suffers, including the people that come in. It's not just the local community that suffers. It's this is a bad thing for everyone. This is just a bad thing. This is the point the show is making to me in these 3 episodes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's reflected as well in Luthen and Andor have a chat, and Luthen's sort of giving his speech about the Empire.
Oh, he gives a great speech.
And about how they, God, I can't even. My brain's turned off.
So I think this is really where the episode picks up. Is this conversation where Luthen finds Andor, meets him. They start talking, and they're talking, and then at some point, Luthen changes gears from buying the cube that Andor has to recruiting Andor, and I think it's at that point where everything sort of escalates, because that's when the town starts making a lot of noise, and they are rattling this metal, and suddenly for the next 5 to 10 minutes there's just rattling metal noise in the background, which is just such an effective use of just sound to me. That is just the background noise, and it's everyone is more on edge. It's that noise it's not music, it's things happening in the world, but it is used effectively like music is to raise the tension of the metal being smashed, and this noise, this drumming noise, is putting everyone on edge.
And it cuts back to there's still a guard, or there's still 2 guards guarding Andor's mum, and
Marva.
they're and she's just Marva, and she's going, oh, it's intimidating, isn't it, the banging, and she's and they're shut up, shut up, and she's oh, well, what's the scariest part is when it stops, and one of them's what happens when it stops, and she just leans back in her chair that's right, bitch, shit's gonna go down.
And from that point, that's when they start fighting. We get this amazing fight scene in this. They're in an old sort of junk warehouse that's got all sorts of random chains and heavy objects chained to the ceiling.
Kind of anvil-looking ass objects, but they're not they must just be ship parts or something.
And after they blow the doors to take out some of the guards, the whole place starts coming down, and we get this shootout and this trying to retrieve the special cube, and Luthen being just give up on it, who cares, we need to get out of here alive, etc, etc. But it's such a good. I really, really enjoyed that, because the whole time, the town is we've got this drumming metal in the background, and all of these heavy metal objects falling in this room as well, and it's just so. It's such a good, intense scene. I enjoyed it greatly. I really had a good time watching that fight scene.
Yeah, it was pretty damn cool with everything falling down.
But from then on, from that point onwards, once that sort of conversation where Luthen starts talking about like how taking down these guys and how they can just like come in here and cause problems, and it's like when he starts talking about taking them down, that's when the town kind of moves to action, starts shutting everything down, starts like covering for Andor effectively. That's when his friend sets up the rigs the thing to the ship, the heavy object to the ship to crash it so they don't have air support and can't like fly away or chase them. Just like so many. That is the point where for me it's like the show starts demonstrating sort of the power of community action and like the things they do, and like the sort of contrast of the people who have come in hostile, who are treating them very simply, who are like, when the drumming starts, they're just like, it's an intimidation tactic, etc., etc.
Well, because just before that, like Andor and Luthen have a chat about like how greedy and sort of how the Empire and by extension the corporations and stuff are like Andor calls them, he says they're like so Empire's so fat and satisfied.
Yes.
And like they just don't, they're so like up themselves that they just don't know, they don't give a shit about.
That is
like,
the moment.
All these like they don't, the corporation doesn't give a shit about the cultural things of Ferrex, and that comes back to bite them in the ass.
It's like, how did you get the cube? I was just like, I put on a uniform and walked in like I belonged.
Yeah, and it's like
yeah, that's when they start talking about it, and that is the point where I just started like getting flashbacks to the last episode we did, where I asked you about you. We had the conversation about the kind of show I would like watching.
Yeah.
You're like, yep, Andor.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is the bit where we get to see the cops eat shit, basically.
Yeah.
But it was so good to watch the sort of demonstration of community action of all these locals who knew the streets, and we got this great scene of like the corpos trying to figure out where they were to each other, and they were just like, there's no signs, we don't know where we are. It's like, well, this is sort of the demonstration of like the community. Maybe there are signs and they've taken them down. Maybe there aren't signs and just the community knows how to navigate them. Maybe they just, they help out strangers normally just by asking around instead of like...
Yeah, I think they generally seem like they welcome like new people well enough. As long as nobody's causing any issues, then they're part of the group,
Oh, and
seems like a pretty chill place.
I just remembered, like, paralleling this throughout the episode, we get the culmination of, we've had Andor's backstory being set up this whole time.
Yes.
Where he's from this like backwater planet. Had some kind
like
of
very primitive.
Yeah.
Like
he's effectively part of like a tribe of children.
Yeah.
A very, very young.
Clearly, at some point on the planet, there was a massive quarry operation.
Yeah.
That wasn't active anymore.
But there's like a Imperial ship that crashes?
It's a Republic ship.
A Republic ship that crashes.
Yeah, there's that like early. A Republic frigate of some sort.
Yeah, but he
has an accident on board, crashes.
Yeah, he climbs into the ship while his tribe, the like leader of his tribe gets shot by one of the survivors.
One of the surviving crew members,
the tribe carries the leader weight, and he goes in alone and basically just vents his frustration by trying to smash everything. But is found by Marva and another unnamed character who are there as like scavengers. And she decides to save him. And it's like
because the tribe kill that like one surviving dude. Obviously, they shoot him full of darts.
Yeah,
and then they're like, if the Republic come, they're gonna see this, and they're gonna
wipe him out.
Just gonna wipe him out. Even though, if the Jedi were there, they probably wouldn't let that shit fly.
Which is again
generally the Republic. They're just gonna fucking roll
parallel to a foreign enforcement force coming in to this situation and just deciding to do something and deciding that they have the power to do something. But Andor being evidently the only one that gets saved by just Marva. Marva decides, I'm going to save this kid because he's going to die otherwise, and I don't want him to, which is, like, in my opinion, a parallel to how he is saved by the community on Ferrix.
Yeah.
Covering for him and helping him out, and all, like, his friends in the town making the noise so he could sneak around with Luthen and get the jump on the other guys, which led to him escaping with the speeder. It's like, it is cutting back in between that and the conflict. And I was just like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, like, the way it goes and progresses and shows us the same thing. And it's like the power of community action and individual action and, like, that sort of grassroots kind of effort, in a way, of, like, people speaking to each other and helping each other out versus the
power of pockets of fermenting.
the power of fermenting.
The start of a rebellion,
versus that foreign sort of alien jurisdiction that comes in with an antagonistic attitude.
Yeah.
That is not there as a system to help people. It's a system to keep itself alive, effectively.
And it's not even exclusive to the Empire and their bits.
No, because it's the Republic
just as
beforehand.
bad. Yeah.
But I just remembered the way it flat cuts back and forth. I just wanted to shout out how good that was, because I think if you see it at sort of face value, it's like, oh, he's going away on a ship in his backstory, and he's going away on a ship now. And it's like sort of cutting back and forth between those. When he gets on the ship in the backstory, he gets on the ship in the now times.
Yeah, it's really
I'm
nice.
like, community action. Like, the individual choice to help him. So, like, oh. And then I've just remembered the fact that his actions later in Rogue One. I'm glad you told me he was the same character in Rogue One, because I would have not have linked that. But his actions in Rogue One leading to being that spark of hope. Oh my god, it's so. Oh, it all comes together. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So, Overlite.
Yep.
Would you want to keep watching this show?
Yes.
Hell yeah, we did it! Woo!
I think there was one thing that annoyed me, but I've kind of forgotten. Hang on, let me skim through my notes. There was one thing.
I was gonna say, the next arc, like, there's a lot of cool Imperial shit going on, which is very exciting. They're like, the sort of Andor stuff is a little bit slower, and then has, like, a great finish. And then the arc after that is just so fucking good.
Oh my god, my notes. I'm making notes, and then I get to episode 3 start. I got like 3 lines of notes. Finally, something happens. Oh, there's a really good moment when in the they're flashing back, and I think Marva or the other character is like, oh no, sorry, the B, the robot is like, Republic frigate approaching, and then we cut to the future, and the ship is flying in. The Imperial ship is flying in. I was like, yes. And then I just start writing in all caps. Yeah, let's go destroy corporate. This should be good. Bell clanging, organizing en masse. I love this metal fight. Together strong. For some reason, I wrote, yeah, kidnap baby. There's no. I just got very excited by the, like.
I think I was
town coming
like,
together.
Basic Marva, like, kidnap, and saves Andor. Is like she does effectively.
Yeah, she does kidnap him, but it does also save his life.
Possibly save his life.
I mean, you could argue maybe there's a point.
We don't actually know what happened to the planet, like it, and all we know is that his sister. He thinks his sister is alive, and was on the planet he killed the 2 dudes on at some point, and that's the only information we have about anybody else being alive from that planet.
Yeah. Reading some of my notes. It's just episode 3. It's like a love letter to the power of community action. The way he is saved in each of those moments. Also, arguably, you could argue that the two sort of corpo guys are the villains of this sort of 3-episode arc. They're certainly the antagonistic figures, but I would argue that the real villain is the fact that Corpo has that power to send. Like, ultimately, it wouldn't have mattered who they sent in, just the fact that they had the power to send in untrained people with guns into this community, regardless of what was going on, something bad probably would have happened. Whether just because they can do that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter that those two were the ones there. It's the fact that they could send anyone down there with guns.
Did you like as well in the like Andor kid flashbacks? They don't actually, apart from Marva and her friend and B,
yeah,
they don't speak in like basic or like English. They speak in the language of that, so you don't know what they're saying because there's no subtitles for it. So it's like the whole story, the whole of like Andor's kid backstory is told with them speaking, but you don't know, you can't understand it. Like you just
they do a good job of showing like how Andor is a very young kid. It's his, I think, first time. It seems to be his first time going on this like hunt with the tribe. The leader chooses to help him out. He clearly has eyes for the leader. And that's like part of why he goes on the ship and gets his frustration. I did, like the rest of episode 1 and 2, feel like it was quite slow. I was like, just all the scenes just took a while, and I was like, okay, I know like stuff is slowly happening eventually, I guess. I can't find what annoyed me. There was something about it that bothered me, that I was like,
well, what do you think about the like of the Ferrex set? Because it was actually mostly a physical set. They built this huge set.
It was great. It felt like they were showing it off at times. It honestly felt like they were flexing some of the time.
Look at this big fucking set we built, bitch.
I do have more things to say that I want to talk about. Got the opening review, by the way it opened.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just like how shows open today in sort of like the modern way that it's done, where it's like we have no exposition. Cold open, no exposition. All we learn for quite a while, and this did actually bother me after a while, is that he's looking for his sister, but the whole of episode 1, he's looking for his sister, he kills 2 guards, the rest is just characters interacting, and that's the reason I found the Corpo guys so compelling, because I was like, oh, they're the only actual thing that's trying to do anything right now. It's like he's doing stuff that will pay off later, but Corpo is like very slowly coming after him.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, well, eventually they're going to get to him. I'm most compelled by seeing their scenes because honestly, they were the funniest. And they were also the only ones moving anything forward. And so it was like, I enjoyed the cold opening. I really like the cold opening. I really like the way it opened. But I then got frustrated by the lack of impetus for almost all of the characters, the way they just sort of started floating around with each other, which makes sense at the end of the 3 episodes, but like watching it is much less enjoyable to me because
I don't know. I do think it is like just showing most of them living their life, and then Andor's coming in and being like, oh, I gotta try and get out of here.
They don't find out that Corpo is there until Corpo arrives, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, they know they're looking for Cassian, but they're like, oh, we gotta get him off planet, etc., etc.
Yeah, but they don't know.
And it's only when Corpo turns up, they're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, until they arrive on the planet, immediately go to Marva's house, and they're like, oh, shit.
but because of that, I'm just like, none of the characters are really pushing anything. Like, he's just like, I want to get this thing sold as soon as possible, you know, ASAP, please, thanks. But there's no like, he's not trying to do anything. He's just trying to leave at some point. He doesn't know they're coming. It's like no one has really any pressure on them to be acting. There's no like tension there. There's no like, you're just waiting for them to interact with each other some more, and hopefully it's entertaining to watch. But it was a good it was a good opening. The way like it was very clear that's one of the ones I forgot when it comes to the powers of law enforcement. The two guards at the start. This whole thing is set into action because these two guards thought like were able to abuse this power that they had in order to try and fleece Andor.
Yeah.
Because they were like, we don't like the look of him and the way he looks at us.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he looked at us funny and laughed possibly at us whilst we were in this bar, strip club, whatever.
Yeah, so it's like start to end, this entire situation in which bad things happen to everyone is caused by the system that gives random fucking people guns and the power to use those guns without recompense.
Yeah.
Anyway, Star Wars IP owned by Disney. That's cool. I just thought I'd point that out for a show. I feel like it's an important step in talking about this. Just to point out an incredibly corporate. And I do complain about this sometimes, but it is the topic of the show.
Well, there's some like very open lesbians in the rest of the show.
I know. I just think it's I think it's important to recognize that the Star Wars IP is owned by Disney, which is a famously nowadays incredibly corporate company. It's like peak capitalism, suing people left and right is great. It's great to. I'm not saying this to discredit like the show. I'm sure that everyone who worked on it is amazing. It's just like talking about an environment in which people suffer because of a system that lets these things happen. It's a show created by people who can do cool things, but probably have suffered by a system with you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not great at putting this into words, but I just think it's important to if I'm gonna go on a rant for half an hour about police powers and the problems and the strength of community action rather than just giving people guns or law enforcement abilities, then I do think it's just worth a reminder of who owns the intellectual property of the show. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to put that in there because it would feel somehow superficial if I didn't after going on a rant about that.
That's fair. Okay, so completely off of that topic. Do you have any? A lot of people, when they got to like this third episode, thought that Luthen, because he has that walking stick, was a Jedi.
Jedi. He has a cape as well that makes him look like a Jedi. Like his coat is very Jedi-like.
So how are you feeling about that like theory coming into that?
I don't care.
Yeah.
I think for all intents and purposes, we as viewers are used to Jedi being the good guys, like on a sort of more superficial level, even though like you could probably make arguments about. I haven't watched any of the movies in a long time, or given them that much thought compared to how much thought I've given Andor right now. But like, I think to me, when I see like man that walks sort of through the street with a flowing cloak and a walking stick, and especially the way he like sheaths it and puts it in his coat.
Yeah.
The way he moves and is presented within the show is very Jedi-like, but I don't know if that... I don't know or really care if that is in order to regard him as a Jedi, or if it is simply to let us as viewers know, like, hey, this guy has the aesthetic and sort of cinematic stylings of the Jedi, the sort of good guys that we are used to, and it's to make us be like, oh, this guy is coming in as a stranger into this place, but as someone who is here to help, who is trying to help.
Yeah.
I think that to me is why he's like that, rather than him being a Jedi.
I think that's fair.
He could be, but I don't think they've made a specific. Like, I don't think anything he did was specific to him having force powers or having a lightsaber or anything. I think it possibly could be buried within the information that maybe I've just talked about, or something else. I did wonder at some point if this was going to be a story about the Force, if someone was going to be a Force user or something, but also I was like, honestly, I don't really care. I'm enjoying it.
The good thing about
really
this show is that it isn't about the Force.
Yeah, it's just a good story.
Some great Star Wars shows that are about the Force, like the Clone Wars is about the Clone Wars. You know, it's got Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka in it, everything. Rebels, amazing show, goes into like the sort of crazy mysteries and weirdness of the Force, super hard, like it's great. And Andor, fuck the Force. This is a show about people.
It is a show about, honestly.
Yeah.
It is a show about characters' choices within a system and the results of those actions.
Well, I still say Star Warsy because Star Wars is about family.
Yeah.
Family. And
is Star Wars about family?
Yeah, Star Wars is about family. It's about Luke.
What, like the Skywalker family?
Yeah, Luke and Leia, they're related. Then Han and Chewie together, they saved the galaxy. As a little found family, and in the Obi-Wan is like brother to Anakin basically, and then they got Ahsoka.
It's just like any Dungeons and Dragons party.
And like everybody, it's like found family, all found family. And Rebels is like the crew comes together, and they're basically like this little family. And Kato
actually, now that I think about it, it is the common thread through literally every Star Wars. Is by the end, like these people flying around the galaxy on a ship together, trying to do good. Tell me a Star Wars thing that doesn't happen in.
Yeah. Family.
It's about family. Yeah, fair enough. I hadn't thought about that. I honestly it's not a universe I've cared too much about. Star Wars universe. I still don't really like. It's the prominent sci-fi thing with space wizards.
Yeah.
And I don't really like the.
Get out of here.
Don't really like the space wizards. It's like
I'm hanging up now.
It's kind of nice. The last two we've done, I've been incredibly receptive about. And it's nice to be enthusiastic about things and not just shit all over it. But that requires the show to be good.
Damn. Don't you do my...
Yeah, fuck you, Star Trek and Stargate.
My Stargate like this. This is my
Get out
baby.
of here. Now that I know people appreciated what I've said about those shows, I could be way more arrogant about it. Could be like, yeah, I was right, and people enjoyed me shitting all over them.
No.